Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're going to be talking about making a mallet using forest school methods. If you've done your forest school training, chances are you've made one of these before. If you haven't, or even if you just want a refresher, this video is for you. I'll just take you through the whole process of making mallet, how I adjust it to different ages and abilities, because this really does scale very well from introducing young learners to tools for the first time, all the way up to some more experienced children. So if that sounds like something that interests you, stick around and we will get right into it. So the first thing to talk about whenever it comes to natural crafts is material selection. Now there is an ideal group of materials, and then there are materials that we just make do. But a lot of it is about making do with what you have where you are. So if you only have willow and sycamore on your site, and that's all you have access to in the size that you need, then make them out of willow and sycamore. They probably won't last as long, and they won't be quite as strong, but we were talking about a learning process here. So we'd much rather the children have the experience of making the mallets than leaving it out just because we don't have the right wood. Don't throw out the entire recipe just because you don't have any parsley. So most of my mallets are made out of either cherry, holly or hazel, because those are a lot of the woods that I typically collect when I'm working on conservation sessions or forestry work, or just have on my site that I'm allowed to coppice. So this mallet that I showed you in the intro, this is a piece of cherry. That's a good solid size. So this is a good thickness for a really heavy duty mallet, the kind that you can really thump on the back of an axe with to split wood. And that's really handy size, and that's nice and strong. Beechwood is good. Holly, you'll probably find is a lot easier to source. I've been doing a lot of stuff with holly lately, taking out a lot of holly where it kind of overgrows and blocks out an entire area. So it all depends on what you can get, but basically you want as dense and hard as wood as possible. Hazel is probably going to be one that you find pretty often because it cops pretty easily, and you probably can get permission to harvest some. So this is probably about as thin as I'd go, which is a couple of centimeters across. This will make nice mini mallets, which is good for craft projects. Think like haphazoma, or hammering in small tent stakes, or just using to crush nuts to pound flowers into an ink, something like that. Just really small and simple. So as I've used up a lot of my materials on other mallet projects recently, we're going to use the thinner stuff today. So I'm not going to get into a massive discussion on saw and saw safety because I have an entire video dedicated just to that. I'll leave a link to that up above. But in essence, you want a sawhorse. Sawhorses are fantastic pieces of kit, so well worth making one. It really does increase safety, convenience and efficiency of sawing, because you can protect your hands with these posts. Then bow saws are typical forest school because you can have two people use them. So I'll typically on one side, and in this case I'm using my right hand, but I'll probably use my left for a lot of activities. I'll pop it on top of the wood, and then I'll get the child to hold, depending on the age group of course, to hold the other side here. That way I can guide the saw and I can decide how much power I'm putting into this process. Am I just putting in just enough to keep it straight, and letting them do most of the work? That's with older children, adults. If if they're quite young, I'll probably end up doing most of the effort and they'll just be kind of going through the motions. It's just about involving them in the process, starting to build those muscles and starting to build good technique. But for good technique, you just want to keep the saw blade as straight as possible and keep moving as smoothly as possible, using as much of the blade. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut a little shelf part of the way through. You need to do this first before you cut your mallet wood to size, otherwise you'll be working with fiddly little pieces and it's a bit of a struggle. So based on the diameter of this wood, you can compare the saw blade to the diameter of the wood. You can get a good indication. So if I just bring it up there, I can see that I want to go about 3/4 of the way down the saw blade. Now for the head, you probably want about 1 hand and 1/4 hand to 1/2, and then all we're going to do is just, as we'll switch it around here, we just keep going right down till we reach our point. For thicker wood, it's probably going to be at least where the back of the saw blade runs flush with the wood. So we keep going until the saw blade essentially disappears into there. Then we just go rotate it, try and keep that straight line. Once we've made our cut all the way through, then we need to decide how long we want the handle. For the children to measure out their hand length, go okay over there, they'll move their hands away, and then all the way through. Key technique here with any sort of sawing that has a long thin blade is to keep the wrist, elbow and shoulder in a straight line. So you're moving smoothly backwards and forwards down your side. As soon as you start popping that elbow out to the side or twisting off to the side, you're going to end up binding, and it's going to be a lot harder work to get the saw through the wood. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be splitting off the sides of the handle, which is why we put it in the stop cut all the way around. Now for the bigger mallets, if you want to take off a lot of material very quickly, the axe is the way to go. Again, I've got a whole nother video on this as well, on safe axe use. But essentially what you will do is you'll hold the axe and then you'll get the learner to tap it there. You can, with older learners, adults and so on, you can either get them working on their own or with another adult or another learner. So just go give it a bit of a tap. What we want to do is we want to take down the diameter. So I tend to tell people to take it down to a square first. Can tell this isn't a very good axe because it really does not hold its edge very well. There we go. Just give it quite a thump. Make sure your axe is nice and sharp for this, unlike this one, which is just making me put in more effort than I really need to just to get it started. So I've now got a square-ish or rectangular profile, and then what I would do next is I'd take off these corners here. So I'd come in about there, there, there. Now with these smaller mallets, if you didn't want to use an axe for this, or you wanted the learners to be able to do it entirely themselves, a good way to do that is with a knife. You can actually batten a knife through quite easily. Like that. You can take chips off the side You can even use one of the Mora safety knives, the ones without the pointed tip, to reduce the risk here. And you just got to keep shaping it, taking it down. I mean, it's whatever shape you want to make it. I find like a hexagonal, almost oval profile is quite good, quite comfortable in the hand. We want to take off a whole lot in one go. See, we've taken the profile down significantly. You might still have a bit more of a tapered profile in this direction. That's okay, we can come in with a knife and do a bit about that. Or we can just start a little further down, put the knife in at an angle. Now with younger ones, this is probably as far as I'd have them go. This is a perfectly usable mallet, and actually having those edges on there gives you a bit more grip, stops it from twisting, and makes it feel more rustic. So with older children and adults, you can get them to take the corners off with a knife and just get it all nice and smooth. The tricky thing here is the instinct to want to cut towards yourself, because the bits you want to carve are going to be right at the bottom here, and it's difficult to get the knife blade in close enough. I mean, you can do the bottom quite easily. You can even put a nice chamfered edge on the top. So it's just a variation on the knife push. You know what I have for people who are interested in knife safety? A video. Okay, just a little chamfered edge on the top. Now the tricky bit is this section really close to the handle. As you can see, again, I can't get in there very easily. So what I'll sometimes do is, if you do hand on top, pop your fingers away, and then you're going to carve underneath it. That way no fingers are at risk. Shall only be using little movements. You can turn it. As I say, all of this is down to your knowing your children, the learners that you're working with, your own risk tolerance, and so on. This bit isn't necessary, it just shapes it up better. Obviously, if you are working with really competent people, then you can do a whole hand push towards you. So if I come a little bit closer, you can see I've got punch grip, but the knife blade is facing towards me. And then I'm just going to bring the fingers of my other hand behind, and I'm just going to push the knife and my hand in this direction. This is one of those, yes, I said don't cut towards yourself, but it's very safe way to look at it. So just, those finger movements, as long as it's actually really difficult to bring the knife back any further towards you, because your elbow starts to lock up at this point. So pushing fingers on the back of your hand, but this is probably going to be too advanced or too tricky for most young learners. So this is probably adults only, but it's a good introduction. And there we go. Let's carved, of course, they can be sanded down. If you want to keep them longer term, treat them with linseed oil, boiled linseed oil. It's a good way to bind the fibers together a bit more and make them last a little bit longer. But I consider the little ones to be a bit of a disposable asset. They'll break down, they'll end up looking all terrible, they'll crack. But if you can get 2 years of use out of them, then it's pretty good going. So there you go, that is how to make a mallet. I hope that's proven helpful for you. I encourage you to go out and try this with your groups, try it with the children you have at home. It's a really fun activity, and as I said, a really good introduction to tool use. You don't have to bring knives into it. Axes with control, you holding the handle, is pretty safe. Just think about the learners you're working with. Okay, with that, I think I'll wrap up the video. As a reminder, I have a full activity PDF for free download in the description down below with all of most of the activities that I use on a frequent basis and they have proven most popular. Also wanted to say a big thank you to Wellness Woodlands. It's been 2 months since I was last back here and everything's just green and lush and beautiful, and I'm really grateful for them for making this video possible. So again, link down in the description. With that, thank you so much for watching. Remember to make the most of every day, and I'll see you in the next video.